Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of AdvocaSAY. We have Miss Lisa Wilson back with us. And if you read our title of this podcast, it's about Lisa joining our team. We are so excited about having Lisa as a member of our team. She's very knowledgeable, very experienced, and very helpful. So I'll start off by saying, my name is Paula Armstrong. I'm the mother of Morgan and Jeremy. Jeremy's 24 years old. Morgan has multiple disabilities and she's 20. So I'll pass the torch to Crystal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Crystal. I'm located in Michigan. I'm a wife and a mom to five kids with varying disabilities.
Hello, everybody. I am Bunny. I am here in Maryland. I'm married with three adult children, and I advocate for my autistic grandson, Grayson.
Okay. So, Lisa, I know you've been on here before, but I would like for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your son. Your
My name
family, period. I'm sorry, not just your son, but your family, period.
Yes, my name is Lisa Wilson, and I am the parent of Blake Peterson, who is a fourth grader. And he has been diagnosed. He has multiple disabilities, but we are working through them. He has been immersed in hundreds and hundreds of hours of therapy, and things are moving along. We're still struggling with some cognitive areas, and he is not on grade level. He's 2 grade levels below, but he is working very hard every day, and I'm very proud of him. And so I just want to say that, and I reside in Maryland, and I just want to say that it's my deep honor to be here and to actually be a part of AdvocaSAY. I am, God has slowly revealed to me that this is my purpose in life, to be an educational advocate. My official title is a free, unpaid, non-attorney special education ambassador. And within that and under that umbrella, the primary area that I work in is advocacy, educational advocacy. But I want to definitely expand and make this experience a little bit more global. So we want to do parent education. We want to expand in some areas about legislative updates, staying fresh, and keeping up with the trends in the special education and disability at large community. And so for me, I believe that we are in the United States of America at a public health crisis stage. And then I believe the state of special education in America is a looming public health crisis. And so I believe that parents must come forward and advocate for their children, because all children that have disabilities that attend public educational institutions and some private, but we want to focus more on public, are covered under IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, and also Title II of the Americans Disability Act, known as ADA, and then also Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. And with that said, that's three major pieces of legislation that has fundamental entitlements for all children with disabilities that attend school, but they also, aside from that, they have constitutional rights. Now, children may not have the full breadth of the constitutional rights that we enjoy as adults, but they have constitutional rights. And so the foundation of my platform is helping parents to understand what their rights are so that they can advocate for their children. And so that's pretty much who I am. My belief system is that we have to bring this community out of the shadows. And I'm hoping that for government intervention, perhaps, and specifically the Department of Justice, I'm hoping that we get an intervention. We've already had the United States Supreme Court render two very important unanimous decisions in favor of special education and also the parents' role in special education. And so now I believe that we need the Department of Justice to come forward and to also intervene so that parents are not caught in these very imbalanced situation, power imbalance situations, because the school districts have the money and they have batteries of attorneys, and parents are often very overwhelmed by this process and intimidated. And so I'm hoping that we can continue to amplify this issue so that we can have governmental intervention on behalf of our children in this community. And so I'll stop right there. That's who I am. Those are some of my belief systems. Blake is my world. I am his voice. And that's just, that's where I am. And I am deeply humbled, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to help all parents or anyone who has questions. If I don't have the answer, I promise you, I will research it and find it for you.
I love it. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
When I tell you, when I first met Lisa, I was drawn to her because of her passion. And everybody knows for me that when I go somewhere, if something doesn't go, not the way that I want, but the way that it should go, I'm gonna fight that thing. And when I met Lisa, I was like, wow, Lisa's like looking in the mirror. But Lisa has like she has more of the legal side, and it's just like second language to her. Now I would have to go look for it. And I told her, I said, Lisa, I said, I see us working together one day. I said, I see that. And she was like, you think so? I said, I do, because we both are passionate about what we do. And I think the thing that I liked about Lisa so much is that it's not, of course, Blake introduced her to this community, but now that she has that introduction, she's about helping people. And I think that is remarkable. I do. And I think for me as a parent, whenever something came up for Morgan, I didn't have anyone else around. I had to figure it out. And most of the time I was just talking to the teachers, trying to pull them behind the scenes, trying to talk to them. But to have this assistance, I'm sure this will be so wonderful for a lot of parents.
Yes, it will be, because going through that process, the IEP, looking at it, it's all very intimidating. I remember the first time that I attended an IEP meeting, my thought was, you guys are sitting on the same side of the table. I'm over here by myself. I don't understand any of this. I didn't know what questions to ask. It was foreign language to me. So to have you join the team, to be able to provide that assistance is just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I think what I love that Lisa emphasized free.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa, can you tell us why?
Yes. It's my personal belief system that it is absolutely unconscionable to stack the deck against parents who are already underwater. And I don't mean financially, I mean emotionally.
Yeah.
Being given that information from a physician, either preterm or post delivery, that your child has a disability, and one that they're going to have for the rest of their life, it's devastating. And so I just find it absolutely unconscionable to charge a family or an individual money for information that is in a free domain known as the internet. And not only that, the U.S. Department of Education, their website is absolutely amazing and incredible. And so I just think that it's unconscionable, and it's something that I will never do. I will never accept $1. I will volunteer, and I will do this for the rest of my life, and I will never accept $1 for this, because I understand, I have the lived experience of being a parent of a child with multiple disabilities and understanding the financial strain that it has caused on my life. I would never, ever add to another family the pressure or the obligation of having to pay to understand the idea or Title II of the ADA or Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. And so it's my opinion, really, that the schools should actually have more of a advocacy role. They have parent support centers established, but you have to go find them, and
Yeah.
for the school district that my son is in the office, there are only maybe 3 or 4 people that are assigned, maybe 5. And we're talking about a school district of 20,000 plus children. And so I really do think that schools should take a more active role of creating avenues of advocacy for parents, especially when they are encountering and engaging these legal processes that are very complicated and very overwhelming. So I would never, ever charge $1, ever.
And God is going to bless
Thank
you.
you. Yes.
That is just awesome. Now, I do remember you saying, something related to parents, maybe educating parents.
Mhm.
How do you see that happening? What is it that will take place when you educate parents?
I think it's difficult to kind of get parents together in one place because we all have competing schedules, we have competing priorities. But what I like to do with the AdvocaSAY on this platform is to create webinars or have live opportunities for parents to, call in or dial in, however, what platform we're going to use, to have live question and answer sessions. But I also think taped webinars are a way to put that information out there in the domain, and it can be accessible 24 hours a day. But we have to empower parents, and we have to be creative as to how we do that because we all have competing schedules and competing priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think I think that's a great thing. I think when a parent, and I will say from the beginning when I had Morgan, a lot of information was being thrown at me, but no one ever sat down and talked to me about the importance of understanding that entire process. I was told, oh, because she has a disability, she can go to school earlier. I'm jumping for joy, like, okay, fine. And then it was the infant and toddlers, and you went from that to this to that to that. And for me, I don't know about anybody else, I still don't feel like I have that process down packed. When I look at those documents, like you say, Bunny, I know Morgan's was, I think, when this first started out, it was like maybe 60 to 70 pages. No one sat me down and said, listen, let me teach you how to read this. Let me help you to understand this process. When I sat at the table, they were like, oh, okay, we got OT here, we got speech, we got this person. Okay, tell us what you want to do. And the goals that they came up with, who was I to say that the goal was not appropriate? I mean, I didn't know anything about occupational therapy. I didn't know anything about speech or physical therapy. So the goals that they were coming up with, you as a parent, that's not your area of expertise. Our area is to be a parent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in those ways, I'm not going to always say that the schools have an ulterior motive, but I will say this, that when you're thrust into this position of being an advocate for your child, you're not always given all of the tools to be a proper advocate for your child.
Right.
Yeah.
That's power. That's that power imbalance that I was talking about. Because as long as you're the person at the table that you don't have a functional understanding of what's happening, there is a power imbalance. And not only that, what's so important and what parents don't realize, at the end of those meetings, they push that paper over to you. And this is traditionally before we started with the virtual. And they say, okay, can you sign here?
Sign it, yeah.
And they make it so, the environment is such as that you don't realize that you're signing a legal contract.
Yeah.
And that's what an IEP is. It's a legal contract. And so if you go into this situation completely blind, you really just don't know what you're agreeing to. And case in point, my first IEP meeting with my son, they actually removed autism off of his IEP, and I signed it because I didn't have a clue. I didn't even know what an IEP was. I was that uneducated about the process. And they email you a day or two before the IEP meeting. The parent, it's some type of parent booklet that they parent rights.
The procedures,
Yeah, the
Safeguards.
parent,
safeguards.
Yeah.
but let's face it, you can look at how the length of that, you can look at the font that it's in. It is just something that you literally have to dedicate several hours to sit down to try to read and comprehend. So in my opinion, why are we not having somewhat what I consider and what I would like to do here is having a parent boot camp? How do you just shove information to a parent either via email or just shove it to them across the table and ask them to sign a legal contract? I think that that's something that really needs to be reviewed and reconsidered.
Absolutely.
Parents also need to know that they have a right to say, thank you very much for this meeting today, but I think I'm going to take a couple days to consult with my family members and or an advocate, and then I'll get back with you with my final signature.
Who knew
So
that was an option?
you don't have to sign it right there.
Yeah, but
Well,
even the schedule, when they schedule it on a particular day, I never knew that I had the right to say that doesn't work for my schedule. What I did was I worked around that. Again, they may say, I give you the safeguards book, the parental safeguards and your rights and everything, but it's legal jargon. And like you said, it's like, who would know, okay, that it has to work for my schedule? They just basically tell you, yeah, we've scheduled her IEP for such and such a time. And it's like, you either come or you don't. And most parents, I've even known some parents, and I think we mentioned that, Crystal, that some parents haven't even showed up to the meeting. They don't understand.
Yeah.
This is a legal process. And some people will say, well, I can't believe the parent didn't come. But you don't know what someone's job looks like. You don't know if they have never been told or educated on this process. They don't know.
The process is really hard and difficult. I stayed up all night. I mean, plenty of nights trying to learn the process, trying to figure out what does it mean when they say parents have rights. I really lost a lot of sleep and prayed a lot. So I did learn in looking at Google and going into different autism mom groups. I learned, yes, you have a right. Parents do have rights, but that's not something that we would have just said, no, I can't make that meeting. Let's, reschedule. We don't know that we have that type of voice and control until I just start joining a lot of groups, reading a lot, researching a lot, and then I start pushing back. And I'm like, okay, yes, parents do have a voice. But then it's, being bold enough to use that voice. So a parent boot camp, oh my goodness, that would be amazing to give parents that voice and that boldness to go to these schools and attend these meetings and to bring someone, because a lot of parents don't even know that you are allowed to have someone to join these meetings with you. I had to learn that. I had to learn the difference, whether it's a paid advocate, an attorney, or a family friend. In my case, it's just a family friend to me that was extremely knowledgeable and, but parents just don't know that. So that parent boot camp, webinars, all of that is amazing.
Well, let's start with the fact that parents are never told that they're a part of the IEP team. So when you get that invitation, you just think I'm going to a school meeting.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you are a bona fide part of the IEP team.
Absolutely.
Meaning all decisions, all drafts, all pre-decisions that they talk about before the meeting, you should really be a part of that. And even that drafting, that draft IEP, you should be a part of that. They should be calling you, consulting with you, asking you, do you have anything to contribute to this draft process? Because you are an official part, and that is recognized by the law and then reinforced by the recent Supreme Court decisions that you are a bona fide member of that team, and you should be a part of every phase of the development of that IEP, not just the meeting where all the ink is already printed on the page.
Isn't that something?
Absolutely.
And to know the time frames of sending those draft documents and all of that. Oh, wow. This is Oh, it's just so
And
good.
and you know, and I just want to speak up and just say, like, I can't speak for my district as a whole, but I do know that that is a message that is sent out. But
Mhm.
because I have my kids kind of go to the same schools, it could be my relationships with my teams that I do get those draft IEPs. I do get, Miss Francis, please share with us your concerns so we can have those included. Please, you know, so I am able to come a little bit more prepared. Again, my situation could be different.
Mhm.
I've I've been working with maybe these people or these particular schools for a long time. And so, but I will say it was not like that in the beginning. So I
Well,
had
let
to
me
get
correct myself.
there.
You should be a part of the drafting process.
Mhm.
Do
Mhm.
you understanding where I'm
Yeah, I
coming
do
from?
understand that. And with
So
the
it should,
drafting process.
yeah, not just receiving the draft 5 days before the meeting. You should be a part of the drafting process. So
Now,
you
I
should
have not
be
been a part of that.
I
I
have
will
never.
say I've received the draft. I've shared my concerns that I can add to the draft.
Mhm.
Usually I wait till we come. The draft is usually not all the time everyone has even updated what their goals, like they're showing up,
Mhm.
you know, to the meeting. But I have been in constant communication and we've been talking about stuff. But I do understand what you're saying, Lisa, and I can say that as far as like when the draft hit me, have I contributed to it already? No, I have not. When the draft hit me, it is, Miss Francis, this is our draft. But please, and it's, I'm usually given more than enough time to
Mhm.
review and
Mhm.
to say, hey, this is what I'm not liking this, or I want to address this. I need a
Mhm.
better understanding. But I'm not, I wasn't there at first. And I think, like I said, I'm sharing also that I'm working with the same consistent schools, how I sent my kids to the same buildings. So I'm working with teams that I'm familiar with or buildings. And that's not speaking for a whole district.
Mhm.
That's speaking for a county. That's just speaking just on an individual basis. And the next person in those schools may not be there because they could be a new parent or something.
Mhm.
It's just what Lisa's saying. Just some stuff I'm learning along the way, and I'm
Mhm.
still learning. I'm
Mhm.
not a part of the draft.
Yes.
See, I'm
Yes.
learning. That's how I'm learning that. I'm not a part of the draft.
Yes. So what happens is that school districts engage in what is called predetermination. I recently spoke about this at I gave public comments at a school board meeting, predetermination. And that's when decisions are made prior to the IEP meeting. And so the example and the evidence that I have of that is that often when you get that draft under the ESY question, the extended school year question, they will say yes or no. It will already be in there. That's predetermination because they can't have that conversation without you. And
Mhm.
predetermination is illegal and it is in violation of the Code of Federal Regulations. And so that's why parents need to be brought in on the front end so you can offer whatever goals and objectives you believe may benefit the child and may be up for discussion with the rest of the team. It's not that the parent controls the process, but the parent is a collaborative member of the process. And so until we can fully have that recognized, our role that's outlined again by the Supreme Court decisions and outlined by IDEA, until we can have that full recognition of parents as collaborative partners and as certified and bona fide members of IEP teams, I think that we're going to continue to have that push and pull. But you should be a part of the drafting process, you know. And so, and if that requires an extra meeting, it requires an extra meeting.
Wow, that's awesome. And I will say this. I mean, I'm gonna go even further. I was never even told, you know how you keep getting versions of the IEP? I never even knew at the top that it was a draft and then it went to an amendment and then it might have gone to the final. I mean, because all I kept doing was just getting paperwork. And you know what I did when I got the paperwork? I just put it to the side. But no one ever sat down and explained to me the different versions. Like, okay, this is a draft. Okay, now you went to the IEP meeting and then it became another. I can't think of all of the little dots at the top, but it's a draft, And then it's just like, I guess, like, you know, how back in the day when they had the bill, how the bill went through the different phases and it became like a law, you know, but those were steps. It was like steps that you went through, but you never really understood. And I told everybody, I spoke somewhere and I told them, I said, I went to Morgan's IEP meetings dressed to a T, like professional with my suit on and everything, because I wanted them to understand and know that even though I did not understand this process, I was afraid to say it and I was afraid to even tell anybody. I didn't really know what I was doing. I plan to still be there to represent my child. But when I look back and see, you know, in some ways, I did her a disservice as well as the school did, because I never really admitted to the fact that I don't know what's going on here. And I don't know in some ways if that was an advantage for the school. I won't say that all schools do that, but I do feel as though it was an advantage somewhat, because and I use this for an example with my daughter's her speech. She's nonverbal. I was never told that they had an obligation to find a speech device that worked for her. Was never told that. What they
Assistive technology. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, assistive technology. They basically made me believe, oh yeah, we're gonna go back and look in the storage room and see what we have here, and we're gonna see if that will work for her. When I say one day, I didn't even know what I was doing, but I got down with the speech person at the table. I mean, and we were arguing because even though I did not know that they had an obligation to find a speech device, even if they had to spend good money on it, I just didn't like the way that she was talking to me. It was almost like she felt as though, like, I'm just here just because, and you know, I don't need to answer your questions. And I knew enough to know that you will not dismiss me. And I mean, we got down in that place, and I think it set the tone like this lady is not to be played with. But they didn't know I didn't know.
That's it right there. Set that tone.
It was a good front. I just knew. I was like, you will never speak to me like that again, ever. And then I wrote a letter to put into her personnel file. Again, I did not know the process, but I just knew you will never dismiss me when it comes to any service for my daughter. So I say this to say that I wish that I knew all that I know now, you know, when Morgan first started out, because I'm not saying that she would be a lot further. I don't know. But I do believe that I'm going through this process so that AdvocaSAY was birthed. I do say
absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely, because I came to AdvocaSAY when I started looking at Grayson's IEP, and it's so funny. I have his IEP on my desk, and when I talk about the times of just making sure that, and this is 46 pages, and I read every page. And if I did not understand, I Googled, what does this mean? I was asking Google questions like, what does this mean? I came to Paula, asking her questions, Crystal, and we had some other team members at the time, just trying to gain as much information, because to be given a thick document like this, and Paula, like you said, is draft, approved, amended.
Yes.
Right. And not knowing. And then Lisa, you mentioned that not having autism captured in here, you know, you've got to really know exactly what should be in here, and then services, goals, all of that. So this was his first IEP. I've looked at many of them since then, but if you don't know stuff like this, saying here's his IEP, take it home, and then sign the PWN or whatever that's called, you just sign it. You wouldn't know. But I think after talking to Paula, Crystal, and everybody, I'm like, no, let me stop and sit down and really read this so that I can understand but it's intimidating. It
You
really is.
become
And
a
then you
force
talk
to
Yeah.
be
about the
reckoned
law.
with. You
It's
definitely become a force to be reckoned with as a parent. You
yeah,
do.
yeah.
You do.
And
But
that's me. I'm that person.
can you imagine any teacher, any principal, any special educator, any general educator in their personal life going into a meeting and being asked to sign a legal document without consultation and interpretation? They would never do that. So
Right.
why is it that parents are asked to do that on a regular basis?
Mhm.
I liken the IEP meeting to a Senate confirmation hearing because it's you
Oh my.
by yourself, and then it's them.
Mhm.
And that them can be from 5 people to 10 people,
Yep.
depending on the disabilities of your child. And it's you, and it feels like against them, but because of the way you're treated. And, we can talk about that at another time, because I think that the conduct that's happening by these teachers who are public servants, the conduct that they are displaying in these meetings, like you said, that you felt she was being dismissive of you. I think that's a greater issue, but I also believe that that's a organizational, cultural issue as well. So,
Especially when you're challenging them. You're absolutely right. If they got an inkling that this person can be a problem,
mhm,
oh, they are going to definitely find a way to discount you.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's where you have to stand up the most.
And I didn't have that problem. I'm so glad. Grace's
Mhm.
IEP team was amazing. And I
Mhm.
know that,
Blessing.
yeah, I
Yeah.
really did not have the attitude to push back. Now, everything wasn't always good, but they listened, they respected me. They even got to the point they respected me as Grayson's advocate and grandma, because that's how I address myself. It's like, who's on
Mhm,
the call? Oh, Grayson's grandma and his best advocate. That's
mhm,
how I went it. So eventually they start listening to me. They start asking me, Grandma, what do you think?
mhm,
What should we put in as his next goal? So I appreciated his
mhm.
team. So I didn't have that,
Wow.
issue there.
Now,
Hmm.
I will
And
say I had Morgan's IEP today. Speaking of, I had her IEP meeting today. And I mean, of course, she goes to Kennedy Krieger. And I mean, I have a great team of people. It has gotten to that point. One thing that Crystal, like what Crystal was I felt like Crystal was very knowledgeable. She discounts herself, but she was very helpful to me in a lot of ways, because I don't know if she realized one time we talked, and I was never told this, that you can put your concerns for your child into the IEP. I was never told that. I was
Mhm.
never told that it was a portion of the IEP that you can insert your concerns or make the school to know, okay, I'm concerned about this. And ever since she told me that, oh, I gets down. I tell them, I said, get your pen and paper out because
I
I
did
have
too,
been,
Paula. Yes.
yeah, but I
you say
didn't
get
know
your pen
that.
and paper out. I send my whole stuff ahead of time. Be like, yep, these are all my concerns. And
Right.
then one time I was at a meeting and they kind of snipped something out, and it was like trying to make. I said, this is not what I sent. And I think they was like, well, that was long. Miss Francis, didn't we cover that?
Put it
I
in
was like, I
there.
want everything I sent in there so
That's right.
you know. So I think that was important
This
to
is
me as a
Bible.
parent. But it's
Yeah.
once I learned that, because sometimes I think at first I showed up and then say, Miss Francis, did you have any concerns? It was a question. And so you
Mhm.
sitting there and thinking on the spot is
Mhm.
not always
Yeah.
as well thought
Mhm.
out, because you'll go home and say, I didn't tell them about this.
Yeah.
I didn't tell them you like to play in water all the time and
Mhm.
water is not really good. If it's a sink in a classroom, you might make a mess, or you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
to
Mhm.
me, that don't sound important, but that is
Mhm.
very
It's
important,
important.
because because then I don't want a teacher to call me and say, your kid is always in the water, this, that, and the other. And I'll be like, I told y'all it's in the IEP. That's
Mhm.
part of my concerns when
Yeah.
there's whatever it is, I just use
Mhm.
water. But I'm
Mhm.
just saying, like, that's important. And I think you just keep learning, like, even as we're sharing stuff, Lisa's telling us stuff like, that may be what's happening, but the law says, and
Wow.
that's what we don't know. That's
Mhm.
what I don't know. And so I feel like I'm ever learning, Lisa. I feel
Mhm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, I never knew this, Lisa. I never knew when I got a phone call to come pick up my kid that is actually a suspension.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that. And
Really?
too many of those phone calls,
Mm-hmm.
like, so me not knowing this, and I got plenty of phone calls in kindergarten for one of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
It was not documented. It was a phone call, and I obliged. And then I ended up just volunteering in my kid's classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up, when I would have to leave to pick up another kid from school, I just signed them out. But in my state, kindergarten is not a requirement. So this was kindergarten. And that's what I did to help him still be able to access education in kindergarten. He was a kid coming straight from the home into a school setting.
Mm-hmm.
So as a next kid comes in, this kid gets those phone calls. And one day I was told, like, you know, you don't have to go pick up your kid, especially when I put things in place like an FBA was done. I have his behavior intervention plan, his BIP in place. You know, you do not have to come pick up your kid. Is it a manifestation of the disability? And it is. My kid is not malicious. He's not coming to school hitting, kicking, biting. You know, he's reacting to something. And
it is. That's a very important point. And I will tell you that I think that that's the way we're going to pull the Department of Justice into this conversation, because when you talk about seclusion and exclusion, those are words that gets the attention of the federal government. And there are some recent decisions and some civil activity out of the Department of Justice for schools that are over disciplining children that are disabled.
Wow.
And that is the issue. I was just at a community meeting. Our advocacy group was just sharing that information. This is a really big problem in districts of the over discipline, especially of students with IEPs and 504s. And is it a manifestation of their disability? Can we really get to see what's going on versus just, hey, 5-day suspension? Especially, you know, it's just so many intricacies about those things. And I just will say that I did not know this, but earlier this year, I got a phone call. Miss Francis, come get your kid. And, you know, I was like, I'm not coming to get my kid. My kid, you know, this is the first time I spoke up.
Wow.
The first time I spoke up, because I didn't know how that looked, speaking up, saying, I'm not coming. I'm telling an administrator, I'm not coming to get my kid.
So you don't want to be confrontational, Crystal?
I don't want to be confrontational. Okay. He called me. I dropped my kid off at 8. The call came like 8:30.
What?
Come get your kid. I was like, I just dropped him off. And I was told, Miss Francis, you need to come get your kid. I said no, and I was just told, like, oh, you know what? This is where it turned. I felt like, well, your kid's been escalating all week, and it sounded like, and we hit it, so you need to come. That's when I turned, because that's what I heard. You know, it sounded like, I said, well, that's not the reports. I get daily reports. That's not what I was told. And I said, well, can't my kid just stay? No, your kid can't. Your kid. And then I was told they didn't like my tone. And then I felt like, you know, well, just like you started your day, I started my day, you know, you know, and so I don't have family where I am. I don't have, you know, so it calmed down, and I called my husband, was like, yeah, I think you need to go to the school, because it's not going to work out for me if I go there. But I ended up having to be the one to go. I'm sorry.
Sorry that happened to you and that was your experience. And what I would recommend, because as you noticed that right away they said they didn't appreciate your tone, what I would recommend is that you end the conversation and then you go to email, because you want to capture the interaction. One of the evasive techniques that schools use is they like to do a lot of things over the phone. Because this is a legal situation, you want to try to capture as much as you can in writing via email.
And I did do that, Lisa. And I will say, I did not know to do this, but I did, even though I did consult higher up in our district, I was supported. And that felt good. I was supported. And I came back to the table the next day, the reentry. But what I said, what I recognize is that this is considered a suspension. And so I said, I need an account of what happened. And the account was, well, this is what the, you know, everybody's account, not even the teacher. The teacher's like, I really didn't see what happened, you know. So, and they're saying this, you know, the TA said this happened. Well, then I said that wasn't good enough. If this is a suspension, what did he violate? Shouldn't there be some kind of document? And I requested that, and it came. I needed a legal, whatever it is that said, it sounded bad. Like, who wants to have some document that your kid was suspended? But I felt like, don't I need that for my kid, the covering? Like, if this is a true violation, then spell it out to me. Tell me what happened and what, you know. And so I was at a community meeting, and it was solely about that, Lisa. It was just solely about an advocacy group about the disciplinary actions of our students. And they were saying, please request that and please document each time you get a phone call. And, you know, I'm ever learning. And when I learn, I share.
Yeah.
And but I didn't know that portion would even be necessary. I think I was just still upset. And I was like, this is considered a suspension. Why do they call me? Then I need a document. I need something to say. I need to know what was violated, what in the code of conduct that was violated, that, you know, and
yeah, I think that they need to invest also in parent liaisons. It should be a parent liaison that you can consult with in a situation like that. You know, there has to be an intermediary. There has to be some form of an intercessor between the parent and the school, because things can get heated. And the reason I told you that, to be very careful with that when they use that language, like, I don't appreciate your tone, is because one of the things that is happening in the district where I live is that parents that are emotional about whatever the situation is, they are being banned from school buildings because that behavior is being painted as though you're being threatening, you're being intimidating. So you have to be very, very careful. And so what I learned to do in the IEP meetings and everything, I just come up with just little things, like I try to keep my hands crossed so that I'm not talking with my hands. We have to be very careful, because once they see an avenue where they can paint you in a negative light or in a threatening light, you can be banned from the school property, and that is to include all activities. I met one parent last school year. She had a confrontation with the teacher that she saw in the community, but it was a verbal confrontation, and she was actually banned from her child's 8th grade graduation. So, and I'm using that example because I need you to really understand, like, when things get a little hot and heated, and you really have to be careful, because this is one of the weapons in their arsenal that they use against parents, other than calling CPS and,
And I do believe that, Lisa, and I want you to know what is sad is that I was really taken aback by that comment, because Bunny and Paula knows me. That I'm not confrontational. I'm not outrageous. So when it was like, I didn't like your tone, I think he just didn't like that I was like, I'm not coming to get him. Right. And I felt empowered to like speak out. And then I was like, no, is this backfiring now? Because this man said he liked my tone, and I think because I was there, but I was not raising, I was not getting loud. But then it's sad to hear that even if you're being direct and you're trying to be, that it still can work against you. To be banned from your kid's school, that's a bit devastating.
Yeah.
It would be very devastating for me. And so I have been verbally assaulted in IEP meetings, really wounded on a personal, deep level. But I have had to really work through that and fight through that, because nothing is going to stop me from being an advocate and being present physically and psychologically and emotionally for my child. And so I'll never walk into that trap. And it's so sad that, and I think that that's a leadership failure. And I think when superintendents are appointing principals. I think that that is a flaw in that appointment process, that they really need to understand who they're putting in these positions, because that is a position of trust that not only the children have to have trust in that leadership, but the parents do too. And you should be able to have very candid conversations about the sensitivities involving your children without being threatened,
Yes.
you know, with being banned. And, you know, we're just using that as an example. But when I talk about that power imbalance, that's one of the things that I'm talking about as well.
Well, I will say that when Morgan was in school initially, that they did try to say that before I came up there, I would need to submit a request to come, and then they would have to wait 2 and 3 days to be approved. I said, no, I'm not doing that. And I said, first of all, I don't do that for my son. And I never did it for her. What they did, they started seeing that I start asking too many questions. And a lot of the times that's where it comes from, because you're asking entirely too many questions.
That's very important. Yes. So what I like to do is I like to go do observations for my son. And so because, you know, there's a little bit of a tension between myself and the school district, I was restricted to 30 minutes in each class. He was in 2 classes. And I wanted to make a big fuss about it, but I didn't. I went along with it. But I'm fully prepared to revisit that situation, because like you, Ms. Bunny, my son's IEP is 46, 47 pages long, and there's no way that I can advocate for him with 30 minutes of observation. And he has multiple disabilities, and he has multiple goals and objectives. So I do plan to revisit that. You know, sometimes we have to pick and choose our battles, but that's back to that power imbalance. Now, to be in the school, you have to pay to be fingerprinted and all that. And I paid, I think, $70, which that covers, you know, so I've met that criteria. So why are you now unilaterally putting a restriction on, you know, me being there? But it's like Paula said, they don't want you asking questions. They feel that your questions are a challenge when your questions are just a question, you know. And
it's
so,
a challenge if you're doing something sneaky. And that's what, I mean, for me, it was the same way. It was just observations. I want to come and observe my daughter. Oh, well, you have to put in a request and wait for 3 days for it to be approved. I'm like, have you lost your mind? And for me, if you don't have a bona fide reason and you're not doing that to other parents, then now you're discriminating against me. So I do believe that parents don't feel as though you can't ask questions. And I will say, like you, Lisa, you definitely have to be cautious about the way that you can't get. And I know I don't use profanity, but I know some people are coming up to school cussing and fussing. You hurting yourself and you hurting your child.
That's right. You can't do that.
And it's a way to do everything.
Yeah. Lisa, it's funny that you said that they gave you 30 minutes. So I was going up to the school, and she's like, oh, you can only stay for 30 minutes. I said, no problem. But what I did, I really just was overly nice to everybody. Just, you look so beautiful today. How was your day? Let me go get y'all lunch. You know, I just had to figure out, how can I get in this classroom, stay longer, because I needed some data. So I wanted to see what was going on. And that's how I was able to really get my foot through the door. You have to be nice. You cannot go into these situations and although we want to, you know, have a certain tone, or, you know, you're not going to do that to my child. You just got to think twice before you go in there, because like you said, you can be banned from the school, regardless if you go do the whole background fingerprints. So I had to really be strategic in every complaint, every disagreement. I had to be strategic and give gifts. But on the side saying, listen, you know that wasn't right now. You know that y'all got to do better, but here, take this take this $5 and go get you some lunch. I just, the whole school year, I was just strategic about, my approach to trying to get him out of that school. So parents really need to understand, the more fuss and yell going into these schools with these teachers, your students and your kids got to stay there. And I had to think about that. Even in Grayson's new school, I had to go in there. Oh, y'all look so nice today. You got to give those pleasantries. You got to be overly nice, because he's with them more than he's with me. And with him being nonverbal, it's like, I need you guys to take care of him. What you like for lunch? Let me go in this situation and be really nice. His IEP annual review is coming up. So they sent a questionnaire. Now, this is my first time receiving a questionnaire. I haven't opened it up to look at it, but I did tell them I want to look at his goals and his targets, because he's older now. It's new goals, new targets. So they sent a questionnaire. I'm like, a questionnaire? And they said, we want to know, what is it that you want us to do? What should you be working on? So I'm like, okay, this is really great. So I'm happy about that. But is that something that certain schools do? He's in non-public places. Is that something that they do?
I have received that. I don't know if it's just because Morgan is in a non-public school as well, but I have received that too.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never received a survey or anything like that. I just want to interject that even people that are incarcerated have visits longer than 30 minutes.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, she was like 30 minutes, but she used it. She said 30 minutes because of personal privacy for other children. I was like, okay, so
but is that like district wide? Is that something like I was about to ask, like in school setting? Because you would want to know, like, was this for every school, or is this something like a policy put in place? Yeah.
It's my recommendation that whenever they give you something and you're confused about it, you can ask, may I please have the written policy that supports that?
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's just really important. I have a problem with the fact that I can volunteer to go on field trips, which are hours long, and I can volunteer to come and be on field day, because they send out these letters. We need volunteers. But then when it comes down to me gathering data for my son's IEP, then I'm all of a sudden that we're in this window of restriction. And so these are the things that we need the Department of Justice to really create. We need the Department of Justice to really look at reviewing some of the policies and practices that are happening in these school districts across the nation. Because one thing about it is that the federal law, the federal special education legislation governs special education. States can create their own laws, but they cannot supersede federal regulation. And so we need to make sure that there are some checks and balances. And I think that the Department of Justice is the only agency that is going to actually be able to effectively come in and do a top-down review, similar to what is happening to police departments, where they're doing what they call pattern of practice investigations, where there's like discrimination against one group of people, say African American males being, physically, assaulted, kind of like what happened under the whole, the Freddie Gray and the other gentleman in Minnesota. The Justice Department actually comes in and they do what they call a pattern of practice investigation. And that's exactly what I'm calling for, is some pattern of practice investigations in these school districts who are recipients of billions of dollars. Federal funding. And the fact that no one is really watching is disturbing and concerning for me, because the state has a vested interest in not conducting deep investigations into the school districts, because if you understand how the money flows, the federal money flows to the state, and then the state disseminates it to the counties. And so the states have a vested interest in making sure that everything kind of stays calm and a little bit under the radar. You know, they do some findings, they give you a couple findings here and there, but they have a vested interest, because if the Department of Education comes in, that the state is going to be affected on if some of that money is withheld by the Department of Education. So again, this is why I am repeatedly asking, and I repeatedly contact the Department of Justice, the Civil Division. You can go right on their webpage. I'm contacting them because I believe that we need pattern and practice investigations to really understand how the money is being used and the resources. And then they also need to look at how this population is being treated. And over disciplining is a very serious issue, especially when we get into seclusion and exclusion. And I think that's the only way we're going to get the attention of the Department of Justice. And that's why we need parents to keep, like you, Ms. Crystal, saying, you know, no, I need some documentation to go with that. As long as they can keep
consistency across the board.
As long as they can keep making phone calls, you know, that gives them an opportunity to deny things later on down the road. Because if it, you know, the old saying, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So that's why we have to be vigilant, you know. But I think we can still develop collaborative relationships with schools, but with a clear understanding that we're not only parents, we're advocates.
Absolutely.
This is I do want to alert everybody. Of course, you are part of the AdvocaSAY team, but I also want them to understand and put them on alert that, you know, you have been assigned an AdvocaSAY email address, which we'll put in the comment section, so that they can reach out to you for their assistance. And then if we feel as though additional paperwork is needed, we will let everyone know. So we're still developing this portion of our AdvocaSAY team, but we do want you to know that Lisa does have an email address, and we'll definitely provide that. But again, we're still trying to get all the nooks and kinks out of things so that we can make sure that AdvocaSAY is covered. But we definitely want to, we did this show to introduce you to Lisa because as you can see, she's a wealth of information. She's very, very, very knowledgeable, and she's willing to assist everybody. But we also want everybody to know that when you're reaching out, Lisa is the one that's handling all of this. So we may give our little bits and pieces and everything, but she is the one that knows her stuff. Okay. We know our stuff as parents. So we also want to just tell everybody to give her some time. You know, you may send her something. It's not going to be a turnaround tomorrow, because as we said, most of these documents are 40 to 50 to 60 pages. So if you need some assistance, we want to definitely have her to dedicate that time to what your child's case or what have you, but understand that there are other people reaching out to her as well. So she will be in touch with you. But we just ask that you give her time and that you just be as patient as possible, because again, Lisa does sleep. She does have
she does work.
She does have a full-time job, and she does have her son. She has a family. So with that being said, we just again want to welcome you to the team, Lisa. I always knew we would work together, and I just thank God that this is just the beginning of our working together. I do believe we have a ways to go, and I just appreciate you just joining our team and dedicating your time to this. So that's my closing remarks. Crystal and Bunny, I'm gonna get you out, guys, to say something, and then Lisa, you close us out.
Well, I so appreciate Lisa. Welcome aboard. So glad to be able to work with her and to learn from her. You know, I'm learning new stuff even as we're talking tonight, and you know, it helps me to be a better parent, a better advocate, and a better resource to other parents as well. You know, I feel like whatever I know, I'm always willing to share. I love her heart, her passion, and it exudes. It really exudes, Lisa. And so we
Thank you very
appreciate
much. Thank you very much for the kind words.
I was just sitting here and listening to you talk, Lisa, and it's like, I want to be that person that can offer help, because I look at it like, okay, I did it for Grayson. I want to be bold enough to help like you do, Lisa. So I am. I'm going to be a student of yours, because
Wow.
I definitely want to learn. This is something that, as a grandparent that is advocating for my grandson, I do want to be able to help my family and help those that come to me. This has been amazing. I've learned so much just sitting here talking to you, so much more talking to you, that I really want to learn more about the laws. How else can we help to get parents more involved and knowing what their rights are, and what does that platform look like with AdvocaSAY, and where this whole AdvocaSAY can go. We can blow up. I'm just sitting here and like, bloop, 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 bloop. So many bulbs are, lightening up. This has been amazing. Welcome to the team. This is an area that is definitely going to be definitely used a lot. Parents will be reaching out. We're going to be reaching out because we have our children and have our questions. This has been amazing. I am just so excited to learn more from you. Just welcome.
Thank you so much. Like I said, my mantra and my mission is to bring the disabled children and students out of the shadows. I think that it is so important for us to make these commitments, because this is a very sensitive area for a lot of people. And there's still a lot of people who cannot come to terms with the challenges that their children possess. And I think that each of us, not only are we here to help them, but we're also modeling for them that it's okay to be open about this process and about the personal process as well. There's a lot of acceptance that has to happen before we get here. It took me years to get here. But I believe that it's so important. What I'm doing is going to help the children beside Blake, and then the children that are coming behind him. And I do believe that this is autism. And we definitely have other developmental disabilities. I don't mean to not recognize those disabilities. We'll have ample time to do that. But I do believe that autism is a public health crisis. And I believe that we need a call to action, not only from parents, but we actually need the government to come in. And one of the reasons, in closing, one of the reasons I changed my title to Special Education Ambassador is because I wanted to disarm people in the education community. I want to disarm them. The word advocacy, for some reason, it introduces some stench of adversarial interactions, and I don't want that. So I'm softening my approach by titling myself as a special education ambassador, because I'm just not tied to IEP. I'm tied to education. I'm tied to community activity. I'm tied to a lot of different aspects of this community. Tomorrow, I'm going to be at the Angel Walk for Down syndrome. So it's not just about autism, and it's not just about IEP advocacy, but I'm an ambassador. And I have, I don't want to get emotional, but I don't think people understand what happens when the doctor gives you that information. It is life changing. And if you're not changed by it, and if you're not moved by it, then to me that speaks to who you are, and not about the information that you're given. But we have to band ourselves together and make sure that we can educate all the people that we can. And I applaud Paula, because I think that this platform is exactly what we need in this community.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get the word out. And I am so humbled to be here, and whatever I can do to help, I am here and I'm available to help. And this is just my life passion. This is where I am in my life, and this is where I plan to remain. So thank you for all the kind words, but it's truly, I'm a Christian. I truly believe in God, and I believe that God has me on this path, and I'm here, and I'm going to be obedient to his command and his call on my life. I'm not a minister, I'm not a missionary, but I believe that he has put this calling on my life to be a voice for the voices. I know. I'm sorry. I'm fighting back here. And so in the end, I consider myself a civil rights activist. I believe that educational rights are human rights. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity to bring my energy and my knowledge to this platform to be able to be of service to all people who are in need of assistance. Yes. So with that, I close. I thank you guys so much. I'm so humbled to be here.
That is so beautiful.
I couldn't do it without my team. I'm telling you, it couldn't be no one man team. I just couldn't do it. And I will say, closing this out, I did pray and ask God for him to select the members of this team, because I know people think it's my team, and I thank God that he gave me this and he birthed it, but I couldn't do it alone, and he has provided all the members of the team, and I do believe we're going to continue to grow. But guess what? Even if we stay at 4, it's more important for me to have the team that God has given me versus having numbers. So I thank God for everybody on this team. I thank God for the individual roles they play. People just don't see behind the scene how Crystal's doing this and Bunny's doing this and I'm doing this. And now we got Lisa. I thank God for you ladies. I appreciate
We're passionate about this. This isn't just something that we do. This is our life, and we're passionate about helping our family as well as other families. Like this, when you talked about getting that diagnosis, I cried. Grayson was 18 months. I cried because I knew his life as well as the family life was changing.
Forever.
Yes, but look at it. It changed for the better.
Yes.
Look at this, guys. And who would think? I mean, so it's what they say, when you're giving lemons, you make lemonade. And I can honestly say, you can stay around and cry, or you can get up and say, okay, it's time
out
up
and go to work.
Let's roll up our sleeves and let's get to work. So this is what the AdvocaSAY team is all about. So again, ladies, I just thank you. I appreciate you. And Lisa, roll up your sleeves, because we got work coming your way.
Coming.
All right, ladies, well, you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we look forward to we will everybody give us a little time, but we're gonna roll out that information to you. But just give us a little time. All right, guys, thank you. Have a good evening.